GM, can my character go to the bathroom? I don't know. Can they? That was a premise that I had in my head for some kind of great joke, but it turns out I'm not funny. Support me on Patreon. There is a sentence that we in the tabletop and pen and paper role-playing community use to bait new players into the hobby, and though it is completely true, it is also not the whole story. You can do whatever you want in this game. That's accurate, isn't it? There's game systems where you can just take over the engines of creation and stomp out entire mountain ranges without even having to roll dice. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. By the way, not simply an RPG tip, but also good general life advice. I am very wary of people who do not understand that this is the case, because it means that basically, if they could get away with murder, they would. But we've all been in the situation where nothing in particular is happening, or worse, something in particular is happening, and someone at the table picks up their character sheet, picks out something at random almost that is on that character sheet, points at it, and goes, I do this. I remember a while ago I was running a game of Shadowrun, and the players were all in one location and they wanted to go to a different location, so they decided to get in their cars and go to the other location, except for one player who decided to do a ritual with which he would summon a spirit that he then instructed to steal a motorcycle for him, and then when he had that motorcycle, he drove that motorcycle to the place where they all wanted to go, like 2 hours late. Now, did this player not have a car? Or did the other player say, no, you can't ride in one of the many free seats in my vehicle? No, he had a perfectly fine car. He just wanted to do that, and so he did. Different game, different situation, different player, same kind of player. The party is negotiating with one of the most powerful local barons on behalf of the goblins, because they got it into their heads that they want to broker a sort of peace and make sure that the goblins that live in the city sewers get integrated into society. Like giving them access to education, welfare, making them contributing parts of the economy, the whole shebang. During a second of dramatic lull in the conversation between the Baron and the player that usually did the talking for this party, this player goes, I use my powers to disfigure one of the serving maids. In my naivete, I asked him if he really wanted to do this, assuming that this was some kind of joke. But no, he really wanted to do that. He just used his magic in the middle of that banquet hall to do irreversible, horrific damage to a perfectly innocent, not even named NPC that was just kind of there, serving them snacks. Now, I was in a bit of a pickle at this point, because the Baron, the thing that he would have done is just immediately have that guy executed for attacking a member of his household. And because I assumed that the players wouldn't really do something like that, because it's completely insane, I hadn't made stat blocks for the people in the household. Like, you know, the guards didn't have any, and I hadn't prepared them, and the Baron had some, but he was mostly like a talking character. But then I also knew that if a combat encounter were to happen, I would basically have to TPK the entire party, because they would be like 5 people in the middle of a fortress surrounded by armed guards. Luckily, the players ended up saving me, because having had a little too much of this particular guy's shenanigans at this point, they decided in the ensuing angry discussion to just PvP slaughter him. Of course, the player was angry about this, because after all, they were his party, and they were supposed to stand with him in any situation, and really his character just is a crazy sadist. That's how he's supposed to play his character. All his characters are this way. Which, just imagine walking up to the docket and just going, well, Your Honor, I just am a murderer. I didn't have to ban that player from my table, because he never returned. And I have since adopted a GMing policy of, if you are for some reason bored at the table, please take out your phone and look at bestiality porn on Facebook. Don't fuck with my other players and their plans. But by far the worst experience that I have had with this kind of behavior was as a player in a group where a GM was playtesting a system that he was developing. We were like deities at the beginning of creation. I don't fully understand the lore, but that was basically the gist of it. Now, one of the players at the table had already playtested the system in the past, and after carefully studying the rules had found a sort of loophole, I guess. Obviously, full disclosure, I do not understand the theory crafting behind this at all, but he found this loophole where through a very long and arduous process involving a lot of math and a lot of dice rolls, he could essentially build what we in the futurist community call a Santa Claus machine, which is a machine that can basically build anything, including copies of itself. So instead of going to the GM and saying, hey my man, this is a thing that you can do in the system, and maybe you want people to be able to do this at high levels, but this character's not particularly high level, so maybe some rebalancing is in order. He went with just taking the whole play session to do that exact thing. Why? Because he could! Now, to be fair, he enlisted the help of one other player because he needed the help of one other player to pull this thing off, and he warned the GM that he would do this immediately before the session. And to his credit, the GM effectively let those people do their thing, whatever they wanted to do with their 1,000 dice rolls, and basically focused on the players that actually wanted to follow his adventure. But why? Why do any of this simply because you can? And look, I get the enthusiasm that new players have when placed in a world where they can do pretty much anything they want. I really do. And if just doing random shit that you think in this precise moment is somehow hilarious, or breaking game mechanics by doing as much theory crafting as possible, or just being a complete murder hobo, if that is the preferred playstyle at your table, have at it. That is fine. I don't get why you would derive any amount of joy from playing that way, but I also don't understand the appeal of K-pop, where a lot of other people absolutely seem to. So I suppose everyone is entitled to their own personal taste. Well, you know, except some very specific people. But in a regular game group where such a playstyle was not explicitly agreed upon by the people sitting around the table, just doing random shit that bogs down the pacing, doing things that are completely dramatically inappropriate, or just straight up derailing the game because you want to do some weird shenanigans, is just plain you being an arsehole. We're not the only player at this table, and just because you really want to do something that doesn't fit the table at all, doesn't mean that the other players have to put up with your bullshit. RPGs are a collaborative effort where the ultimate goal is to make sure that as many players have as much fun as possible. And yes, the GM is also a player. If you are playing the game in a way that drains away everyone else's fun and just gives it to yourself so you can always maximize your personal fun at the expense of everybody else's enjoyment, that is the literal only situation wherein you are playing the game wrong. Stop being a fucking narcissist, you fucking narcissist. And it took me personally a very long time to internalize this lesson, but you don't have to play with people like this. If a player is just constantly pulling off this kind of annoying shit, talk to them. Communicate in an adult manner that no, building a poop golem in the middle of the town square at every opportunity is not actually fun for anyone at the table but them. You can do anything is not carte blanche to be a complete arsehole. Just because you can do something does not mean you should do it. The soft social rules of any given game table may not be written down in the player's handbook, but that doesn't mean they're not real. And if they proceed with the bullshit, or, you know, dial it back a bit for a few sessions and then just slip back into it, which, by the way, just to point this out, is always 100% a calculated tactic on their part, ban them from the table. You are absolutely within your rights to banish that person from your table forever. They are not entitled to everyone else's fun. They can find their own game with people who like to play that way. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. And in that spirit, of course, always try to communicate, resolve issues like this like an adult, but you don't have to do that if the other person refuses to act like an adult. And see you around, cunts.